stand tall, never gonna fall. Determination in our eyes, we'll rise above it all. Stand tall with the challenge we face. We stand proud and chase. Aim high. Aim high. From every setback, we find strength to attack. Oh yeah. Rise up, rise up, rise up.
The Nobody Asked Me Guy show. Guys, I'm your host, Melvin Casey Lars. And as always, we're happy to have you here. And we always ask you to don't forget to go to our YouTube channel, like and subscribe. Now, tonight, we have two dynamic individuals here with us tonight. And as we all know, sometimes getting an education can be tricky. And people try to figure out what's happening or what's wrong with the individual because he or she may be struggling reading or comprehending and having an issue. Well, tonight, starting with our great guest, Clarice Jackson, who's the founder for the Institute for Black Literacy. Clarice Jackson is a visionary leader, highly sought after keynote speaker, and unyielding advocate for education equity and literacy justice. As the founder of the Institute for Black Literacy, the Black Literacy Matters Conference, and the Black Literacy Parent Network, including its subsidiary, the African Literacy Parent Network. Clarice has dedicated over 36 years to transforming literacy access for marginalized communities. She also spearheads Decoding Dyslexia in Nebraska, amplifying advocacy and awareness statewide. Inspired by her daughter's journey with dyslexia, she established the Voice Advocacy Center in 2012, offering critical screening, structured literacy tutoring, and advocacy. Her authorship of the 2014 NAACP Dyslexia Proclamation, later adopted by the Congressional Black Caucus, that solidified her role as a national trailblazer in the fight for the right to read. Now, alongside Miss Clarice Jackson, we have Miss Winnifred A. Winston. Now, she's a best-selling author, award-winning podcast host, and fierce advocate for literacy equity. As the founder and executive director of Dyslexia Advocation Incorporated, she leads a nonprofit committed to helping families and adults access affordable, high-quality reading remediation. She co-hosts the acclaimed podcast, Black and Dyslexic, amplifying the voices of marginalized communities, navigating learning differences. Winnifred also co-authored the Dyslexia Word Search Puzzle book with her daughter, blending advocacy, education, and empowerment into every page. So guys, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Feel free to ask any question at any time. Now, due to a technical glitch, we will begin our program in progress. We're so happy that you're here. The Nobody Asked Me Guy show. Your host, Melvin Casey Lars.
How do we evolve and how do we create a better environment for Black Americans and their literacy? Specifically, when we talk about what has perpetually plagued our community, and that is below basic reading scores, not just for children, youth, and adults, and functional illiteracy, and the adult prison pipeline, and the youth detention pipeline, where our students sit at the below basic or dyslexic barrier with no access and no real tangible way to be instructed on how to read, write, and spell. And Frederick Douglass said, once you learn to read, you will forever be free. Yes. And we have devoted ourselves within this institute and within this conference to ensure that we eradicate the disparity as it pertains to literacy of our people. And the way we do that is not to wait on systems to change, but for us to take back our power, the same power that was used after slavery that allowed us, and we are the only body of people to ever do it, was to take our illiteracy rate from almost 100% to less than 30% in a 30-year time frame, and no other race has been able to do that. And we did that after slavery, where trauma and poverty, how much more traumatic and how much more poverty could you ever have having lived through slavery? And that still did not stop us as a people from educating ourselves and learning how to read. And that is what we're bringing back. Sorry, I get excited. I get excited. I'm sorry, but I'm not.
Good. I'm excited just listening to what you're sharing, and I'm sure actually our audience, I mean, thumbs and hearts and tears are going. And
Oh, I can't
when
see
you see
that,
me
I don't think.
looking to the right, I'm
Yeah,
looking at my monitor.
yes.
Okay,
Good, good. Well, it's resonating with the people, right?
absolutely.
All right. Winifred, a
Miss
lot of
Winnifred,
to talk. Yes.
are you gonna take a shot from here, or is Dr. Clarice going to keep it rolling because she's definitely
No,
on a roll?
no. I was just going to say that, when we, from the Black Literacy Matters Conference, the Institute came about because we had such key players and we had the best of the best all together, right? I always joke in this space and say there's about 5 of us. Okay, maybe 7, right? You can name them, right? Um, Clarice, LaDerrick Horn, Amir Baraka, there was Sean Anthony Robinson, Julie Washington. Like, you just kept hearing the same names, right? They would speak at different conferences, and maybe 2 of us would be together, maybe 3 of us here, but to have everybody in the same space and then add on some, like Clarice said, that we had not heard of, or some that I may have seen online occasionally, right? Because the algorithm don't show you everybody, but we were all together in the same space for the Black Literacy Matters conference, and we had folks coming from out of the country to show up for this event. And so it was like the perfect storm, if you will, to do something like this, because we had everybody at the table, because everybody said this ain't enough, we need to do more, this is not enough, we need fellows, we need research, we need more, what else can we do, and extend it beyond the conference. And so that's when the Institute for Black Literacy was formed, because we said, okay, we want to do more in this space and be very intentional, and hit on different areas of literacy, of education, with folks, by us, for us. Right. That was really the call.
Yes. Yes. And being unapologetic about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the things, and you can stop me whenever you need to, Melvin. Um, one of the things that I learned.
Dare I do that? I would not ruin a perfect situation.
Okay. So one of the things, like when we first started, and Winnifred has been on board since the beginning, like Winnifred was there with the foundation of it, and Winnifred was there. She was a part of the first conference committee team and still has a role on the conference committee team. But I put out a social media ad about the Black Literacy Matters conference, and boy, do I tell you, when I put that ad out, I got so much hate response from the other persuasion, those that professed on their Facebook pages and their Instagram and their LinkedIn that they are men and women of God. And
I wonder why.
they spewed so much hate. And one of their things was, why are you saying Black literacy matters? All literacy matters. And I said, let me explain something to you. I had time for a few of them before I just said I'm done. But as I explained it to conference people, attendees who are allies, those that are not of the African American culture or African culture, the reason why we have to create this type of platform and this mechanism is because we have been historically and disproportionately left out. And there has been so much data that shows that this particular body of people is not meeting minimum expectations for literacy. It is the same mindset of those who understand that when someone has cancer, and I had to break it down in this magnitude, that if someone has cancer, most everybody on the planet would say, we don't like cancer. Most people on the planet would say that they have been impacted or have a family member or friend who has had cancer. However, We have Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We have a breast cancer foundation. We have a prostate cancer foundation, of which my father passed away from prostate cancer. And why do we have those targeted platforms for cancer when all cancer matters? We have that because we need specific targeted attention to address that particular issue. Why? Some people have experience and people who've either impacted by it, affected by it, or a friend by it. I'm impacted, and my community is impacted by other people in our community who cannot read, write, or spell. It intersects with health care costs, crime, teen pregnancy, graduation rates, economics, which most people understand. If it hits your pocket, then you understand it. And that is why Black Literacy Matters stands and will stand. If you can understand that, and you can't understand this, then there is a bias in you that you need to deal with. But we are unapologetic about why we exist and will continue to be. That's
But
all.
not only is there a bias, there's a hypocrisy, because
It's
all
not.
the things that you've just explained, those individuals that pretend to be so upset understand everything you've just said.
Absolutely.
Because if they did not, then they would not have things in place. And by the way, I call my white sisters and brothers, my less melanated friends, our less melanated friends would not be up in arms as such, because I'm happy that you and Winnifred are sharing what you're sharing, because too many times and I said this earlier, we spend all of our time apologizing, and I cannot, and I tell people all the time, I said, I must have taken too many hits in the head playing football, because I can understand why you are apologizing for personal mental enhancement. I have never been able to understand that. We continue to do it to this very day, and it's just enlightening. And I certainly want you and Winnifred to continue. But I'll stop my tirade right now. Let me, if I can take you back, because you're answering some of those questions already. When you said something to the effect, and I'll try to paraphrase, is that when the question was asked, pretty much about what you thought about certain things, and all Hades broke loose, and about 40% of the people were, what would you attribute, although I think I know the answer and I want our audience to know the answer, but what would you attribute that to?
I'll let Winnifred share.
I feel like a lot of that was, we code switch, right? Historically, culturally, African Americans code switch, right?
Yes.
What I find is that those folks who were not allies, they don't like conflict and they don't like being uncomfortable, right? So I'm not going to be truthful and tell you how I really feel. I'm just going to smile in your face. Right? I'm just going to smile in your face and I'm going to say, yes, we want all children to read. But when we called ourselves out as an organization to say, look, this is what we can do better, we audited different websites. And you know how I named like 5 or 7 people? It was the same 5 or 7 Black folks. And dyslexia spanned more than just 5 or 7 Black folks, right? And it's more than just all white people, white wealthy people, right? And that's what you would find. That's what you would see. Even when I started the podcast, I got the same hate, Black and dyslexic. I was very intentional. At this point, when I started the podcast, it was after that happened. And like I told you before we started rolling, I'm not apologizing. I'm not trying to make anyone else feel comfortable. This is what it is, right? Because we needed a space. You know how many people tell me they've listened to podcasts and within 5 minutes they check out because it's not accessible. It's very research based. It's very teacher talk. It's very much over their head. We just have a conversation about it, right? And we have lived experience. We have experts on the platform and we're unapologetic and we're having an honest conversation. I've had white people reach out to me and say, hey, I felt like a fly on the wall, right? These are conversations I wanted to be in, but I didn't even know I needed to be there. right? But I'm learning. And I think a lot of it was folks' true colors just really coming out. And it was very hurtful because a couple of months, not even a year before this all happened, I had been hanging out with them. That's
Mhm,
when Clarice and I first met,
mhm.
right? We were the only two at the time, the only two Black state leaders. And that's where we met. And I'm talking about going to dinner, riding in the Uber, hanging out at the conference with these folks. And I'm like, yeah, you care about Black people learning to read. And then they showed me their true colors, right? So I think a lot of it is I'm a smile in your face, but how I really feel, I'm probably have conversations with my friends over here, but I'm not going to be, honest and upfront in front of you, and a lot of it is just out of sight, out of mind. It's not impacting their community, right? Out of sight, out of mind. And a little part of me was like, okay, I can take that, but for so long,
Mhm.
right? Like I can accept that out of sight, out of mind for so long. When we're in
Yes.
these spaces and we're always bringing up the statistics of Black and brown and underrepresented students and adults, right? The
Yes.
school to prison pipeline, like you have these certain figures, Amir Barak. Everybody knows Amir Barak, and they know that he
Yes.
went to prison, and they know that he learned to read in jail. Well, he's just one person, right? There's a lot more like him. I
Yes.
think I just shared with the group. I was going to Texas, and my Lyft driver, I'm talking to him, telling him everything that I do. And he tells me he's a maintenance supervisor for a school district. I'm like, oh, okay. And he's telling me about how to clean bathrooms. We just having a conversation, 4 o'clock in the morning, right? And then he says to me, can I tell you something? I said, sure. He said, I can't read, write, or spell. I never have been able to. He said, I had dreams of being a firefighter, but there's a test you have to take. And I said, well, I can help you. I said, I can help you. Let's exchange contact information. This was January. I followed up with that grown man. That grown man. I followed up with him February, March, April, May, July, August. Came back from all these conferences last month. I said, wait a minute. Let me follow up with Donald again. He says, Winnifred, I'm in that literacy class that you told me about in Texas. This man lives in DC area. He said, I'm online 2 days a week. He said, I'm overwhelmed. I'm decoding words. I'm learning how to read. He said, I go to bed by 8 o'clock. He said, so it's tough because it's in the evening. He said, because I wake up at 3 in the morning to work my part-time job before I go to my full-time job. And I'm like, okay, every time I try to step away, I need to balance things. Something like that comes up, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna keep doing it. I'm gonna keep being intentional, and I can't worry about why them
Yes.
folks,
Yes.
why they do what they do, and why they show up the way they show up. Because I just have to focus on what I'm doing and people that look like me that really, really need the help, and just be unapologetic for it.
Yes.
I would say this to add to what you
Please.
said. I would say one of the things that we are demystifying and breaking that association is that Black people need a handout. We don't need a handout. We are fully capable of becoming the very things that we know that we can be. We as a people don't need to ask for permission. We just need to come together. Where there's unity, there's strength. And as we see with this movement through the Black Literacy Matters Conference and the Institute for Black Literacy and the Black Literacy Parent Network, when we come together and when we become intentional and we quit waiting on change, because change from other places may never happen, or it's going to happen too late. Our children don't have time to wait. And I
Right.
use the same thing that God is using me to do in these platforms. He had me do first with my own daughter. And I waited 2 years after begging and pleading and attending IEP meetings and special education meetings because she had dyslexia. She made it from pre-K to fourth grade, unable to read simple 2 and 3 letter words. And what the system kept telling me is they're doing the very best they could for her. And I said, your very best is she cannot read. And then they said, well, we can help you. I said, what's your help? Their help is we will sit someone next to her and read to her. We'll have somebody read her test to her. And I said, she has nothing cognitively that will prevent her from learning to read. I am not raising a daughter who is going to be dependent on a person or a system in order to access the basic right to read. And because you can't help her, I'm not going to allow her to sit in this classroom where she basically is like you put her in Japan or you put her in Paris and she does not know the language. That's unacceptable. And I took her out of that system and I found, and I did this at 19. At 19. This was not my birth daughter, but the daughter that I became the mother of. And in every sense of the word, it is my daughter. But I became her mother when she was 8, technically 9. And when I became her mother, due to the fact that her biological mother was incarcerated at 19, and I gave that system 2 years, and I didn't even really know what I was doing, but I knew enough to know that I cannot wait on a system to change. I need to be the change. And I became the change that my daughter needed. And I took her out of that system at 20 years old at that time, making $800 a month. And I found a private school that used a multisensory method that addressed dyslexia that I had to find out and search on my own was the thing that was preventing her from reading. And when I researched and found that and found a school and walked into that school without a dime, because it cost $5,000 at that time to go there. And I only made $800 and $425 of it went to the rent. And my daughter wasn't a part of the system, so I got no check for her. So I'm doing this on $800 a month. And I went to that school and I said, my daughter cannot read, and I refuse to leave her in a system that can't teach her. I want her to come to this school. And the founder at that time in Omaha, Nebraska said, we have had kids from the public school system come here that's been paid for. She said, I know that you will work that out because of how you presented yourself to me. Send your daughter here and you work on how it gets paid. But in the meantime, let us educate her. And in 1 year, she went from a non-reader to a 3rd grade reader when the system had her from pre-K to 4th grade and couldn't teach her to read. And that forever changed me. And if I had waited, my daughter would have never learned to read because Satan himself and experience took my daughter out this world at 24 years of age. So January 24th, 2015, I got the call that no parent ever should get or wants to get. And I was told that my daughter was shot and killed while attending a house party. So she didn't make it to 25. But she made it where she was able to read, write, and spell and have a job and all of that. And the full circle moment for me was that the people they believed shot her or shot into this crowd of people were gang members. And guess what was on these suspects' things? They could not read. They could not read. I was able to get my daughter out. And I did not wait on a system, that same system that is just now recognizing dyslexia and trying to change it. And now the superintendent of schools is saying, our moonshot goal is that we will have all children in the district reading by 2030. My daughter passed in 2015. You don't have time to wait on a system. You must be the change you want to see.
Wow. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, as you share that, and as you share that piece about the not being able to wait and people being insulting by saying all people need to read this, that, and the third, you have just made it crystal clear, quite honestly, is that it is never about all people. And when people try to dismiss those of us that need those special services, and it just tell who they are. So when you started the organization, as your, and if you allow me to call her your baby, as your baby started to improve in her reading, etc., were you ever in contact with those schools that were perpetually destroying other children because they were not willing to do something different and to assist those kids
Yeah.
early on in the process.
Yes, I was what the public school system would say a great parent would be. I was a part of the process. I was a part of the IEP team. I attended the meetings. I read to her at night. I did homework with her. I attended conferences. I engaged in the process. I immersed myself. I became a special education advocate because of that. And there was not even the training that was locally at that time in Nebraska about special education advocacy. And so I looked elsewhere and I found the Council of Parents, Advocates, and Attorneys on the East Coast. And I flew to Williamsburg, Virginia, and I stayed down there for a week and got trained on how to do special education advocacy. I was everything that they said a great parent should be, and my daughter still could not read. And so when I brought that back to them, they really had no answer for it. And now, full circle, because of the advocacy and the legislation that's been passed and the science of reading and everything that's gone along with it, and all the things that I, myself, and other people have done across this nation when it pertains to literacy, now schools are just now really getting it. They're just beginning, but this has been known. Dyslexia has been a thing for over 80 years. And we're just now getting this into the minds of school systems so that they can truly educate their teachers, because teachers come out of the colleges of education up to this point with at minimum 3 credit hours of reading. And then you put them in a classroom where they don't understand how to teach the science of reading. And then they get these children in these classrooms, which could be up to 20% of the population. So in a class of 20 people, you would probably have 4 to 5 kids who are dyslexic, and the teacher does not have the training in order to teach reading in a way that works for all children, which
But
is the science of reading.
But not only
Right.
the skills to teach them how to read, they don't even know how to pick up on it. They don't
No.
even know the signs. They'll say, "Oh, that child is not working hard enough." I know they're smart because, okay, vocally they can communicate. Their vocabulary may be vast, and you know that they're smart, but they still can't read. We were just No, you weren't in Chicago. And in Chicago, I served on a panel, and Morgan State University here in Baltimore, Maryland, is the first HBCU to get accredited by IDA. So their
Okay.
their undergraduate teacher prep program is accredited by IDA. It is the only undergraduate teacher prep program here in the state of Maryland. We have a couple of colleges that have graduate level dyslexia certificates, but I was on a panel in Chicago, and we had a new teacher. She'd been in the classroom 2 years, and she talked about how what she received in that teacher prep program prepared her for when she got in the classroom, and she recognized a struggling reader, and she knew exactly what to do to remediate this child. And
Yeah.
that is the power of hitting it at all levels, because
Yeah.
higher education need to do better, right? They need to do much better, and we haven't really been able to penetrate at that level, right? Because they're their own system, right? But
Yes.
at that level, to have a teacher graduate with a degree, go into the classroom. I was a teacher. At year 2, I was still struggling. At year 2, I was still struggling. But she was able to give an example of when she picked up on it, what she saw, and how to remediate that child. And I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, this is like a full circle moment. Like higher ed is doing what they need to do. And so to have that experience and to know that Clarice's story was how long ago with her daughter? My daughter was identified in 2017, right?
Mm.
In 2017, and the same thing. And as a Black parent, you're not waiting for the system to do anything. All you keep thinking about is, my child has to learn how to read. My child has to finish school. Like, we don't have there's no trust fund anywhere. There's no business that's going to be created, and then my child going to take over that business and do that. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what we have. So we had somebody recently, an ally, and put the air marks there. She said that she can't get Black parents to advocate for their children. She said, I just can't get them to advocate because, I would go to hell and back for mine. And I had to woosah.
Oh Lord. Oh
And my
Lord.
other board members were there. And I was trying to get my words together because I said, this is Clarice thing. I can't really show out and say what I want to say.
Was I there? I don't remember this.
No, you weren't there, but
Okay.
all the other board members chimed in
Okay,
and
great.
tried to explain to this woman that Black parents do advocate, right? And I was trying to explain that with my education, my resources, just the people that I knew in education, I still left those IEP meetings and cried in the car. And I still left those meetings feeling like people are lying to me. They're not telling me the truth. And I still felt like I wasn't equipped to tell them what to do. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't feel equipped to say, this is how you make it right. I just knew the goals were trash and my daughter wasn't getting what she needed. Right. And so it's like, what? Like, Black people don't what? We do everything that they say that we don't do. Right? We do every single thing. Black women are the most educated in this country, right? And that means that mothers are the most educated in this country, right? So we are putting in the work, we are doing it. Again, we're up against a system that is designed for us to fail.
Yeah.
See, may I, ladies, both of you are saying that's it. It's the system. Clarice, if I can call you Clarice,
Yep.
I mentioned to Winnifred several times about Dr. George McKenna in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
His movie is still on Netflix to this day. Denzel Washington is playing the part of Dr. McKenna in Los Angeles. He was my mentor, and people were saying exactly what you're saying, Winnifred, is that Black parents don't advocate. Well, you don't get a movie unless your school is successful. Now, everybody talk about Joe Clark and Lean on Me, etc. And even though he's passed on, have a great respect for that gentleman. I can speak personally to that. Youngstown, Ohio, Shreveport, Louisiana, and Cleveland, I've been blessed to help turn 3 schools around with that same, and I'll say this honestly, same ignorant statement from people about Black parents do not advocate for their children. And that's just an excuse. May I offer, as we talk about the system, is that you have school administrators, not only just the teachers, that are not prepared to teach their teachers and to work with their teachers. You have school administrators that cannot tell you a thing about IEPs, how they should be conducted, what you should do about 504s, etc. You have people with degrees, but they have no clue. So as you share about the system, and you're very, very right, coming out of these universities, and people seem to forget, if you will allow me to say this, is that it's not about them, but given the proper attitude, it can be because of them. So when and that's what I'm saying to you and Clarice, when I was watching you ladies and I saw you in Atlanta, I was, and still I'm pumped because I'm going, thank God I see people that are really true to educating our children, because our children are on life support. They are literally on life support because of all of the hypocrisy, all of the stated racism, all of the gaslighting and baiting and switching about, just as they did with George Floyd, about all lives matter, which they knew was not even the conversation. The man got murdered for $19.99 and a penny. So that's supposed to be okay. Colin Kaepernick got run out of the NFL because he was protesting police brutality. All of a sudden, well, he's disrespecting. So that's why I'm saying, Clarice, if you will allow me, and Winnifred, if you will allow me, is that when we have advocates like the two of you that are doing the thing that you're doing, and you're not apologizing, and you're saying up front, Black literacy, it is very much needed. And we need to stop allowing people to make us feel guilty about helping ourselves and helping our babies. Mm-hmm. Even now with this simple so-called shutdown, when people thought they were attacking us, but then when it turns out, and I was born and reared in the South, It's like, oh my God. Look, listen, let me tell you a true story. 2 days ago, today is Tuesday, in the local grocery store in a little small town here called Vivian, Louisiana, it's always bustling. Most of those people who are my less melanated brothers and sisters are all on government assistance. The store was virtually empty. Mike Johnson is from Louisiana. So am I. One of the, so, well, I don't want to get sued, but that just tells you something. So when I hear stories like yours about advocating for children, and one last thing I'll ask too before I go too far, because this is not my show, I'm just facilitating. Will you? And I want to stop there because I really somebody asked me about dyslexia. Will you go into detail about the causes of what dyslexia is and how it is addressed?
Absolutely. Winnifred, do you want to go or you want me to?
I mean, I could say a little definition that makes sense, right? You know, dyslexia is a language-based learning disability. It is neurological and it is passed down in the genes. It's when a person struggles with sound and correlating the sound to symbols, right? And the symbols are letters. They process that information differently. And that is like a basic definition that anybody can understand. When the brain has trouble processing sounds and symbols, and letters are symbols, right? It is a language-based learning disability. It is neurological. And in most often, if your child is dyslexic, somebody else in your family is dyslexic too. We learned my daughter is dyslexic. Her dad is dyslexic. I have a brother that's severely dyslexic. Never knew. I just thought, we in Brooklyn and New York in the 80s, he just running the streets. But later I learned that my mom knew something was going on because she had him in alternative schools, different school settings back then. And I didn't know that until recently. And so that's just a basic definition that anybody can understand. And it impacts the ability to read, write, and spell. Right, just a basic definition. Now, Clarice, come on, add in all that that educator.
All the jargon that goes with
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
add that in.
I was looking it up because what just happened at
Oh,
this year's
yeah, the
International
new.
Dyslexia Association conference was that the revised definition of dyslexia was unveiled on October 23rd that afternoon. And so it is up on the International Dyslexia Association website. You can go to dyslexiaida.org. And on that site, you will find the newest revision of dyslexia. And I want to read that for you so that you have it. Dyslexia is a specific learning disability, and specific learning disability bodes with the Individuals
IDEA.
with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, and that is a category. There's 13 disability categories under IDEA, which is special education in schools. And of those 13 categories, specific learning disability is one. Now, the word dyslexia has been in that definition this entire time. However, schools just overlooked that word when dealing with children who fit that category, of which Black children have been disproportionately identified as having a specific learning disability. So let me finish reading
But
this.
let me add this. Clarice is really pointing that out because as a parent, you may see specific learning disability or SLP, right? I'm sorry, SLD, SLD category 09. You may see that on the IEP, and the school may never tell you your child has dyslexia because my daughter had SLD, and I kept asking, what's SLD? What's SLD? And they were talking around in circles. Right? So you may see SLD, specific learning disability, then you got to dig deeper and ask questions, right? Because that's what the code is in K-12. They're going to put SLD code 09, but you got to dig deeper. Now finish with that complicated new revised definition.
No, I think it is in full disclosure. I served. This is how the power of one, and deciding to be the change you want to see happens. And I think it's important to say not to attribute to me, but just to let you know how one person and beginning to change things, and how one person then goes back and pulls someone else. Because after my daughter got help, I didn't just say, okay, I'm good, I'm done. My daughter's gotten help. I know my daughter can read. I felt compelled. I felt obligated to go back and grab whoever I could grab. And their parents who may not have understood, but are going through the same thing. I didn't want another parent to go through what I had to go through in order to figure out what was wrong with my child. I didn't want a child to feel it, and I didn't want another family to go through it. And that started with, I was born in 1974, and I'm going to be 51 on November 27th, which is on Thanksgiving this year. That was the first year that dyslexia was defined. In 2002, when it was revised, my daughter was struggling with dyslexia, and I was just discovering what it was. And now in 2025, I served on the steering committee that revised the definition of dyslexia and tried to the best of my ability to make it more accessible for our people, because we have barriers when parents are trying to get into special education or to get services for their children who can't read. Because in IDEA, they have this exclusion, and it's called exclusionary factors. And they say that this child qualifies to get help under specific learning disability only if it's not an environmental factor. It's not poverty. It's not low access. It's not your zip code. It's environmental. And so a lot of Black children have been excluded from receiving supportive services and even the protections under special education because they put that into the federal law. And so in this definition revision, I advocated fiercely amongst 15 or so committee members about why that particular statement in the definition is impacting and creating barriers for Black and brown children. And so it did get changed. It's still in there, but it is not a standalone. And now the new definition, which I'm getting ready to read to you, gives us ammunition to go back to the federal definition and say, you cannot have this particular exclusionary factor because it has been revised and updated as it should have always been stated. And that can no longer be a blocking or a barrier to access for families. So here's the new definition as of October 23rd, 2025. So on the Melvin Lars Show, you are getting it right here. Okay. Keep tuning in. He gives you the best news and the most current and updated news as it pertains to your families. You like that, Melvin?
Thank you. Thank you. I love that. I love that.
Okay, so dyslexia is a specific learning disability characterized by difficulties in word reading and or spelling that involve accuracy, speed, or both. So if your child is reading in slow, choppy, inaccurate reading, and it's just laborious, it just drags out, that's a symptom. Okay. And it varies depending on the orthography, and the orthography is the writing system. That's what orthography means. These difficulties occur along a continuum of severity. And when they mean by a continuum of severity, like even when you heard about autism, it flows on a spectrum. So the continuum for dyslexia is mild dyslexia to profound dyslexia. So it's a range. That's what we mean. So some people may have just a mild case of dyslexia. Some people who have dyslexia are still getting A's in school, but they still have dyslexia. And well, how are they getting A's in school? Why? Because it has nothing to do with intellect. It has to do with what Winnifred already said, as how the brain processes language. And for children that are getting those A's, You don't know how many times they have to read the assignment or how long it takes them to complete their studies, but they're doing it over and over, and it's very laborious, and they're doing that and they're still getting A's. It does not negate that you can be a great student as far as grades, but still have dyslexia. So don't forget that. So these difficulties occur along a continuum of severity and persist even with instruction that is effective for the individual's peers. The causes of dyslexia are complex and involve combinations, and this is where it got changed. It used to just say environmental. Now it says involve combinations of genetic, neurobiological, and environmental influences that interact throughout development. And then there is a companion document that goes along with this definition where it expands on it even more and says, you cannot negate a child who is showing signs of dyslexia based solely on their environmental factors. That should not be a means to prevent services, but is to enhance and give them access to services. So combinations of genetic, neurobiological, environmental influences that interact throughout development. Underlying difficulties with phonological and morphological processing are common, but not universal. So that means being able to decode a word, being able to sound out words, to know the sounds of the individual letters, to know how to blend. All of those things are in there. And early oral language weaknesses often foreshadow literacy challenges. Secondary consequences include reading comprehension problems and reduced reading and writing experience that can impede growth in language, knowledge, written expression, and overall academic achievement. Psychological well-being and employment opportunities also may be affected. Although identification and targeted instruction are important at any age, language and literacy support before and during the early years of education is particularly effective. So that is the new definition. And again, you can go to dyslexiaida.org, and right below that is a disclaimer where there is a link that will give you a more defined explanation of what I just read for those who may not understand, as Winnifred said, all of those big names and jargon. It breaks it down, and that I'm very proud that we added with this definition because they didn't have that before either.
Bravo. Bravo. Well, listen, Clarice and Winnifred, you have been just awesome.
Oh,
And
wait a minute,
I
Melvin.
didn't really
Before
didn't
you try
intend.
to, before we wrap up, we talked about the definition, but
Yes.
folks who are dyslexic, they need structured literacy, and a lot of parents will get a tutor, and I distinguish like there's a homework tutor and then there's an interventionist. So someone has to be trained, not just a certificate over a course of 2 weeks, okay, but trained and structured literacy, Orton Gillingham, and that approach in order to help dyslexics, struggling readers. So I really want the audience to get that. We talked a lot about the definition and what it is, but they
Yes.
need structured literacy. What's that? Explicit, and what's the other word, Clarice?
Systematic,
Yes, yes. That's the type of
explicit, multi-sensory reading program, and usually that takes at least 45 to 50 hours of training. Melvin, I know you're about to end this. You can reach out to blackliteracymatters.org if you want to be involved in the Black Literacy Parent Network, which will have a pillar within that addresses that dyslexia screening and literacy intervention. Also, voiceadvocacycenter.org, we do have a hybrid model where we have trained tutors who are trained and use a curriculum to address literacy. And then Neuhaus Education Center, I think it's Neuhaus, NEUHAUS.org,
Yes.
has an adult free literacy program, which Winnifred talked about with the Uber driver, what he's in. If you are an adult and you struggle with literacy in a dignified way, you will be taught to read online. You don't have to be in Texas to do it. So
Mhm.
these are resources that are at your disposal.
Yep. Yep.
Great, great. Well, ladies, allow me to say that I just don't want to keep you all night because I could listen and share in my audience. I'm telling you, the thumbs and the hearts and things are going up, so they're fine as well. But are there any parting words you'd like to leave us with?
I think we've done a lot of talking. Is there a pressing or running question that you have in your feed that the audience has that maybe we can address in our final words? I want to make sure we address the audience.
That was the basic question. I mean, that they had, people kept saying, what exactly is, excuse me, dyslexia, and how does it work, and what are the effects? So that's why I want to come back and to ask you to explain that. But that was the pressing question they kept referring to.
So I want to add to that that when we say it's a language-based learning disability, and Clarice mentioned in the definition about oral language, so a lot of young children may get speech and language, right? Speech services, we hear about that. That is a red flag. Pay attention, right? And that's during the child find age. Once they then go to K-12, they need to be reevaluated. Dyslexia can be detected as young as 5.5, right? That is huge right there, because I know a lot of parents come to me and say, oh, well, my brother had speech when he was younger, and then, he talking better now. But he's dyslexic later on. And that was something that was missed with my daughter's father. He had speech when he was younger, but then he wasn't reevaluated and they never caught the dyslexia, right? So it's a language-based learning disability. So parents, pay attention, because when my daughter was as young as 4, I knew something was off. 5, 4, I knew something was off. She wasn't sounding out words. She wasn't blending them together. And she later told me she didn't have, she told me I didn't have the vocabulary to articulate what I was feeling. But I knew that young that something was going on with reading. And I want to stress that do not wait and see. Follow your gut. I don't care if your family members, your spouse, because I get a lot of parents where the spouse don't, the father, I'm just gonna keep it real. The father, I ain't nothing wrong with my child. Meanwhile, he neurodivergent too, right? But the earlier, the better. I don't care. People told me, oh, she's your only child. You're doing too much. No, follow your gut. If you feel like something is off, find out what's going on. Only then can you truly remediate and help. You have to know what it is so that you can remediate, and intervention as early as possible is just so important. And that is key.
And I want to say one last thing, and
Go
before
right ahead.
over, some classic signs that is a little bit more lay signs are letter reversals of P and Q and B and D beyond first grade. If your children are reversing the B and the D and the P and the Q beyond first grade, that's one sign. And if your child has 3 or more of these signs, they should be screened or tested for dyslexia. And in most states now, we have legislation, and your school may not tell you that, but look it up. Look up dyslexia in your state. Just Google that, and it will bring up states with dyslexia legislation, meaning laws. If your state has a law, then you take that law and you put it in writing in an email, because if it's not written, it's not said, and this is your documentation. And you email that teacher or that principal, the teacher, and CC the principal, and you say, I suspect that my child may have dyslexia. I have noticed these signs and I would like them to be screened or tested. The other sign is, I said the B and D confusion. I said the slow, choppy, inaccurate reading. Another sign, which people be like, that's a sign, directionality confusion, because people who have dyslexia have issues with directionality, like knowing their left from their right, their up from their down. Also, tying their shoes. Like if your children have a real struggle tying their shoes early on, that's another sign. Yes, it is. Messy bedrooms is another sign. So if they have these signs, and then when it comes to a certain time at school where you're getting a call about they don't feel well, they don't want to go to school, their stomach is hurting, or they might be acting out in class, it might be because they don't want anyone to know that they don't know how to read. So if you see any of those signs, then start advocating, because what we know throughout history and scientifically, that a child's best advocate, I don't care what education level you have, the parent is the child's best advocate.
Mhm.
And the law and school systems know that, but they're not going to tell you that. So
Yep.
arm yourself with that knowledge that nobody knows your child better than you. Whatever degree they got behind their name, they don't have a degree in your child. You do. Advocate well.
Yep.
Well said. Listen, ladies, it's been great. And again, you've been a huge hit. I mean, I'm looking for questions, but you've done such an excellent job sharing and explaining, and that was the only pressing one that was there about getting in-depth information about dyslexia, and you've done that the entire show. So, Miss
and one
Clarice,
last thing, sorry.
go
The
right ahead.
Black Literacy Matters Conference
Yes.
will be in Norfolk, Virginia, March 11th through 14th at Norfolk State University, the HBCU. We are taking it back to Virginia because that's where anti-literacy laws that impacted us were derived. And we are spiritually uprooting it from the ground, and we are reclaiming literacy and rewriting history as we take back literacy for our children and our families. Join us there,
Fantastic.
blackliteracymatters.org.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Blackliteracymatters.org. We have to make sure we do that.
Yes.
Wow.
We want to
Anything else, ladies? Anything else?
no.
Yeah, don't go right ahead.
Oh, I was going to
Okay.
say, check out the Black and Dyslexic podcast with co-host LaDerrick Horn. You can find us on all your favorite listening platforms, Black and Dyslexic.
Fantastic. And Clarice, where might we find you?
The blackliteracymatters.org, voiceadvocacycenter.org. You can find me on LinkedIn, Clarice L. Jackson. The Black Literacy Matters organization is on LinkedIn. It's on Facebook. It's on Instagram. On Facebook, it's facebook.com, Black Literacy Matters with an 8 at the end, 8CY, the number 8CY instead of ATE. So find us on there. We've got a wealth of things going on. We would love to have you join us. We can't do this by ourselves. We can be the change that we want to see, and it's going to take us all coming together. Come join us. We need you.
Absolutely, guys. Hey, we encourage you to do that. So, guys, listen, this has been the Nobody Asked Me Guys show. As you know, I'm your host, Melvin Casey Lars. And as always, we tell our new listeners, and I'm so happy to see that we have some, is that we want you to go and like and subscribe. And as we tell you every week, we are a non-fee subscription. Some people get scared away when someone asks them to subscribe and they think there's going to be a fee attached. There is no fee attached. So listen, it's been a great night. Winnifred, Clarice, this has been epic. And I truly, truly, truly appreciate having both you wonderful ladies here. And I love for us to continue our communication, and I'm definitely planning to make some of those conferences because I am big on us.
Yeah.
And what you're sharing is just phenomenal. So thank you so very much. Have a great and blessed night.
Thank you.